elements in this memorandum of cooperation is the setting up of a joint stakeholder group which will operate as a committee of the National Media Commission in accordance with Section 10 of the NMC Act 1993, Act 449. 3. The members or the membership of this committee are to include representatives of the National Media Commission, the National Communication Authority, the National Security Secretariat, the Bank of Ghana, the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, the Ghana Journalists Association, and the Office of the Attorney General. The work of the committee is to, among other things, do the following. 1. Monitor the broadcasting landscape to identify and examine complaints of unethical broadcast content. These include content that are offensive to national security interest, public order, public morality, and also against the reputations, rights, and freedoms of other persons. You find them listed, I think, in Article 164 of our Constitution. 2, they will provide an early warning system for flagging such unethical broadcast content. And 3, they will make recommendations, or this committee will make recommendations to the relevant regulators. And these recommendations include: 1, recommendations for the issuance and publications of warnings where that is appropriate; recommendations for the suspension of frequency authorization by the National Communication Authority. So for media houses that are publishing this kind of content, once this committee starts work, if they find that your content is in breach and your attention is drawn and the necessary remedies are not occasioned as requested, they will make recommendations for the suspension of frequency authorization by the National Communications Authority. They will also make recommendations for the withdrawal of frequency authorization where need be by the National Communications Authority. So on the matter of unethical content on our broadcast landscape, this is what the Consultative Forum has agreed to do, and within 14 days they will execute that memorandum of cooperation and start work accordingly. They will examine themselves, and then they will also receive complaints and examine those complaints as they receive, and whichever of the recommendations are appropriate, they will make those recommendations. Now, on the matter of the draft broadcasting bill, the meeting also examined key issues that are being considered in the development of a broadcasting law for Ghana. Now, while agreeing on several policy propositions, other policy propositions required further address through written memoranda from the stakeholder groups. So the stakeholders agreed to submit formal written memos on the bill for the immediate attention of the ministry in formulating a final draft. Stakeholders also further agreed to engage the judiciary on the balance between media gatekeeping and protecting the freedoms of media and expression. The ministry also undertook to secure the needed approvals and lay the bill before Parliament immediately upon the conclusion of these consultations. Stakeholders were pleased with the open and frank engagement and committed to work together to achieve results with urgency. And the Ministry of Information has also committed to hold this engagement annually to examine development in the industry and agree with stakeholders on measures to further develop the industry. So those are the details of the communique as agreed to by the stakeholders, and we will give you copies so that for your publication tonight and tomorrow on your various media outlets, you are able to make them available to the Ghanaian public. Let me quickly do a summary of that in tree so that I don't have to come back to it. If you are basing kwe, yebekaya ekuwa hodwa idi akoten wo abefo mfidie hu de urubo ayebo radio TV ni abefo ntintan so Asia Ministry of Information na efresa nhye no na ye hwe enema ekoso ewo ye radio ye TV abefo ntintan so ayi nyina ye ni hu aye ka ho asem na kwan be ni nyina ya adwen be ko benkom ni etumi akon atia yedi nkomo wie ye no they are ekuwa hodwa yi agitu mu ne se na otwi mienu ntam no mo de o nsa abehye krata ase a be kire kwan o mbefa so aye adwuma bom akon atia ne ma ekoso we TV ne radio ne abefo ntintan so aye nsem fata ekoso mienu de o mo be ye wo saa ekwan o mo fa so aye adwuma bom ne se National Media Commission a ne di akotene wo media adwuma no ne perpere ye mu no o mo mra no section 10 emo mo kwan mo te committee a ebi NMC fo bi afofofo e de ye adwuma to a mobile committee under section 10 of NMC Act no as our committee no NMC 4 was be National Communication Authority 4 was be National Security 4 was be Bank of Ghana 4 was be Giba na broadcasting adwuma yɛ Giba say Giba ɛwɔ hɔ bi Central for Ghana Journalists Association wɔ hɔ bi and Office of the Attorney General ɛwɔ hɔ bi umadwuma yi kan ne sɛ wɔn de wɔn ni ba be di their friend a broadcasting landscape radio TV abɛɛfo ntintan so wɔn de ani be di akyi ahwɛ sɛ wɔn ankasa wɔn hwɛ na sɛ obi yɛ biribi a ɛmfa kwan a ɛfa so yɛ adwuma yi so their friend on ethical broadcast content and I say so be the report bro said there will be on the TV and on the radio and on abɛɛfo ntintan so no on ethical broadcast content a wɔn bɛyɛ hwehwɛ mu ahwɛ sɛ so ampa etia ɛkwan a ɛfa so yɛ adwuma yi anaa saa nneɛma no bi yɛ nneɛma etia national security and our public order public morality and now their ekotia nkofo dine sebe mobobre against the rights and freedoms and reputations of other persons. Etosu mienu omo no bedi kan kra yi asotre se de ekoso wa hei etia kwan e fa so ye adwuma de ekoso wa hei etia kwan e fa so ye adwuma ye friend flagging and ethical
our discoveries, our enduring peace.
Tuanamo ebi aya suspend ana yasre NC is on suspend ana NC say on withdraw kra na saa de rubo no so omo ameni na so ate nti em say obi adwen akobenkum kwan e be fa so na yɛ adwuma na nkɔyɛ sɛ obi se obi ne nya adwen panifo ni na atena se no ma hwɛ na ya sanitize landscape no eba no broadcasting mmara na ɛno na yɛ bɛyɛ de akɔ anim na nsɛm dodo a ɛwɔ broadcasting mmara ne mu no ku ahodo a ɛhyiaeɛ no agye to mu nneɛma no so bi wɔ mu a yɛ adwen ankɔ benkum nti yɛasrɛ ɔmo sɛ ɔmo mpin ɔmo akyi na ɔmo steady na ɔmo man written memos ɔmo nkruche ɔmo adwen no ngu nkrataa so ɛma yɛn nsanka na nkyikyi na parliament ba yɛde akɔto parliament anim ne nyinaa yɛtumi ahyɛ ho mmara de ayɛ adwuma. So that's a quick update on the consultative forum and the outcomes. As I mentioned, we will make available to you copies of the communique as well. Now, if you can load the GIPC presentation, I'll go to our second brief. If you can go to page 2 of the GIPC presentation. Now, every year, every country is working to deepen investment in the private sector in its economy. And usually when you measure what comes from abroad, call it foreign direct investment, as you are aware. Last year, from January to December 2020, despite the pandemic, 279 FDI projects with a total estimated investment value of about $2.7 billion were recorded for the Republic of Ghana. The FDI component, the one coming from abroad, was about 2.65 billion, and then about 145 million from the local market. Now, the FDI value of 2.6 is about almost 140% increase over the figure recorded in the year 2019. And we believe it is because of the gradual improvements we continue to make in the economic space here in Ghana, despite the challenges that we have around us, and even in particular, the challenges of the year 2020. If you look at the GIPC presentation that we flagged on the screen, and if we can just open it up a little bit, about 184 of those investments were in the area of services, 57 of them in manufacturing, 15 export trade, general trading was about 10, and the rest follow from there. In terms of money value, that'll be the third table. So please go to table 2B, the next one. In terms of money value, manufacturing had the largest amount, that's about 1.2 billion, and the services, even though it's the largest component, has about 650 million, mining about 420 million, petroleum 222 million, and the rest follow from there. If you look at the regional distribution, about 231 of those projects will be located in Accra or have been located in the Greater Accra region, 1 in the Central region, 31 in the Western region, 3 in the Eastern region, 7 in the Ashanti region, 3 more in the Volta region, and 1 in the Upper East region. We'll share with you the details again so that you can make it available to your audiences. Now, the key thing that the GIPC is at this stage leading government to do is to ensure that all of these investments, in terms of their equity compositions and then their logistics compositions, are onboarded fully so that the jobs and opportunities associated with them can be fully realized by the Ghanaian people. So, for example, it's estimated that a total of 27,000 jobs expected to be generated from the 279 projects with operations at full capacity. About 22,000 of those jobs are expected to be for Ghanaians, while about 1,064 of those jobs, that's just about 5%, expected to be taken up by expatriates or non-Ghanaians. And these investments were mostly coming from China, about 751 million, the UK about 240 million, South Africa about another 240 million, Australia another 240 million, Netherlands 238 million US dollars thereabout. So what the GIPC is doing at this stage is to ensure that all of these investments are fully realized on the ground so that the jobs and opportunities associated with them are occasioned. And we think it's important that we update the Ghanaian public on all of this. Now, the GIPC publishes a quarterly database. And so in the next 2 weeks, they will be publishing, or they will join us here to update us on Q1. And from what they tell us, the Q1 figures already look very good for Ghana. They will join us to let us know the number of investments, local and international, that we are onboarding in Q1, which areas, which sectors they are going into, so that we can all track and then answer some of these questions for ourselves without it becoming a public debate about whether it is true or it is not true. So that's a quick update on investment and FDI for 2020, and also to signal you that in the next 2 weeks, that of 2021 Q1, we invite all of you so that the GIPC can brief us, and they inform us that already the Q1 numbers are looking very, very, very promising for Ghana. Very quickly, let me take that in Chi, and then I invite our friends with the vaccines to vaccinate us almost immediately. Afei bia oman bia ehwe kwan a yebetumi ama akrankran nyuma akọ nanim. Em say kwan a fa so hwe investments ahe na eba investment ni bi efi amano ni bi fi oman ni mu. The efi amano ni no your friend foreign direct investment. And so na the efi oman ni mu ankasa no bi enya ni sika oman ni ma na wapen sika akro di bi adwuma bi your friend domestic investments. 2020 numbers no ya keken se ni awie. Investments projects are say qualify under GIPC de no ahenu ene ediosun enkono 279 oka hu ska nyina boma 2.79 billion dollars, almost 2.8 billion dollars. So 2.8 billion dollars no emu 2.65 until around of about 2.7 about no if you are manone ne buy and emu be $145 million, and if you Ghana here now here 2.6 now let's say they are 2019 you to me etcheba Ghana has say ya bohu oha inchichemu oha any finance eduana about 140%, actually 139, but you can run it off to about 140%. Empo asafi anymore na yenyina yenimsa COVID-19 yare sene ama yehu achire enti yeboga na phone nyina baso titiru yebo yenu ma GIPC eboga na hodewura etwe ndwuma ba na yebo ma baso wohwe enwuma no baabi ekwa services ene dikan manufacturing export and then general trading nemo momom sika mu edupa ande manufacturing for ne dikan sana servicing services mining na petroleum media ba enwuma no dodo na be won kran ha say Western region so benyabi Ashanti, Upper East Ibenyabi. say adwuma GIPC yene so mo hwɛ sɛ saa sika yɛde aba ɔman no sɛ yɛde biebie nnwuma ɛne mfidie a ɔmo de aba ɛne yɛ equity and logistics na aba no ɔmo bɛhwɛ sɛ ne nyinaa no ɔmo de bɛyɛ adwuma anaasɛ saa for na ebi adwuma no ɔmo de saa nneɛma nyinaa bɛyɛ adwuma na enyuma a yɛhwɛ wɔ ɔman no mu nyinaa no etumi apagya ebi oso kwan a ɔmo bɛfa so no etumi atrem na enyuma ne nyinaa ntena nkran ne kumase na ebi atakorade na obi sɛbi obi afie kora na ɔba nkran ne kumase takorade but ebetumi epiepie bi akɔ ɔman no mu nyinaa no ɔmo hwɛ na wɔnom ɛto ho anamo na GIPC ɛbɔ ɔmo homɔden sɛ bosome mmiɛnsa biara no ɔmo bɛkurukye egu nkrataa so ma yɛhu investment baabi aba abedu na ɔmo de ato anim saa bere no mu kasa yi bosome mmiɛnsa edi kan deɛ no ɔmo wie ho adwuma a ne sa nti bɛyɛ na wɔtwe ne no ntam no ɔmo ba bɛka yɛn nsa ne nyinaa atena so ɔmo abɔdewura kyɛn enyuma ahodoɔ a yɛtumi ɛde abɛka ho ɛwɔ Ghana ha sɛ bosome mmiɛnsa edi kan ɛwɔ Ghana mɛmo ha sɛ na kwan yɛbɛfa so ama saa enyuma no ɛne ho mfidie akɔ ɔman no mu nyinaa na dodoɔ so anya ɛho mfasoɔ ne ahwɛ na yɛayɛ. That'll be it for the second brief. And I'll move to the final brief now. I'm going to ask the team from the Ghana Health Service to be on standby. They will join us very shortly and give us an update on where we are with the vaccination program. Many persons were expecting to get their second shot within 8 weeks. What is the latest update on that one? And where are we in our general COVID response program? But I asked them to give me just a minute or two as our teams play something up on the screen, and then Dr. Boaji can take the podium.
Good afternoon. I'm ready when you are, so give a signal when you're ready to project. So this afternoon we'll be giving an update on our COVID situation so far, what is happening at the airport, what is happening in our schools briefly, and then end with the vaccination update and the way forward. As an overview, currently we have done more than 1 million tests as a country since we started testing January 2020. We have experienced 2 waves, and as you are aware, the second wave was bigger than the first wave. We've had significant decline in our cases since mid-February, and currently we have our active cases have dropped from 8,000 to less than 1,500. Actually, it's about 1,314 or so. We have so far received 966,850 vaccines, and we have vaccinated more than 800,000 people since we started vaccination on the 2nd of March this year. So as further summary, we have detected 91,709 cases, As I said, we've done over 1 million tests with a cumulative positivity of 8.8%. We have discharged 89,000 plus. We have had 771 deaths, and as you are aware, in the last 3 months, we've had more deaths than we had in 9 months of the previous year. The new cases, as of 15th of April, is 46. That's about 3 days ago, we recorded 46 new cases across the country. Greater Accra still remains the epicenter because more than half of these 46 were detected in Accra. And currently, all 16 districts have ever reported a case, and 253 districts still have reported a case, which means that we still have about 7 or so districts that have never experienced a COVID case across the country. The next graph is just the usual graph you see about the epicenters, both in terms of active cases and total cases. And nothing has changed. Greater Accra remains the epicenter. The 5 key regions are Greater Accra, Ashanti, Eastern, Western and Central region are the core regions where we have cases. In the last second phase, we have a few cases, more than usual cases in Northern and Upper East regions. So the next slide shows you the waves, and you can see that the second wave is broader and more intense. And we are working towards avoiding a third one. If you look at the moving averages, which is very important in terms of gauging our number of cases, you can see that it follows the spikes that we had in the waves, and currently we have actually come to a very, very relatively low level and are maintaining that level, and we have to do more to stay there. If you look at the corresponding test that has been done, as you can see, the more you get cases, the more tests you do. So currently we have some reduced number of tests. This is excluding the one at the airport. And you can next see that the active cases have significantly dropped. See how we peaked about mid-February, about 8,000 active cases. Currently is quite relatively low. The next slide shows the same age and sex ratio where you have the significant number being over 45 and above, and then we're having more males affected compared to females. And so that has not changed much. Of course, it's comorbidity as a major challenge, as we've discussed all along. Hypertension, diabetes, and people with diabetes, and the combination of both still remains a key challenge as far as your survival and the way you manage you survive the case or handle the case is concerned. Okay, so now when you get to the Kotoka International Airport, which is a very major area of preventing importation of cases, we have so far tested about 1,400, and we have recorded 1,435 cases since we started on the 1st of September last year. Majority of them are non-Ghanaian citizens. Males outnumber 63% of that. We've done 233,000 tests on arrival since we started, with a cumulative positivity of 0.61%, and so it's not as high as the local community wants. But as you can see in the next slide, since January last year, our numbers that is being required at the airport has significantly reduced, averaging around 90s for every month. Around the Easter, we had a few issues. But that is not to say that we are out of the woods. We still have significant threats, especially with the third waves in Europe, the rising cases in India, Brazil, among others. These are also poses a threat to our cases, so we need to work very hard to prevent them, and that is why the work at the airport remains very, very significant, especially with the advent of new variants, which we may not know how the Ghanaian population will handle that. So the positivity rate at the airport has significantly reduced, but there's a slight rise, and I think that's all because of that. One can say, today is the 18th, that any spike that happens after now, we cannot blame it on Easter, which means that the Easter system that were put in place have actually worked, because the 2 weeks have passed, and so we need to continue to protect ourselves. And that shows you how important that adhering to the discipline in all these festivities is very, very important to avert any spread of the disease. We also have some good news for our schools, and it's good that the new ones are going in when the numbers are down. Because when you go to school at fresh, as you start having a spikes. So far, since we reopened the schools, 345 schools have reported cases. We have recorded a total of 2,052 positives in all schools in the country. Our current active case number is 13, which means that all of them have recovered. 99.4% have recovered, and I'm sure if I were to check today, our active number may have gone down. Volta region has recorded the highest number with 489 cases. OT with 9 has the lowest. Currently, OT has the highest number of active cases because their cases are quite recent compared to the other places. Northeastern region, the only region that had no case recorded. Bono, OT, and East are only region that have active cases among students. So the rest do not have any active cases. The follow-up slides which we can share with you are the details of the number of schools per region and the number of active cases. So ladies and gentlemen, now we can get to our vaccination, which I'm sure we are all very keen to see what is happening. We have an update as at 18, that's our this morning total numbers. As at say today, we have received a total of 966,850 vaccines. 600,000 from the COVAX facility, 50,000 from as a donation from the Indian government. We have 165,000 from MTN Africa, and then 149,000 as a second dose also from MTN Africa, bringing the total about 315,000 from the MTN group. We have also have about 16,000 Sputnik there, which we are yet to use, as we hope to get more, and then we can put them to use. But I want to just take a look and expatiate a bit on what is our wastage. Vaccines usually have a wastage of between 5 to 10%, and the wastage can be broken bottles. It could be taken out of the vaccine container, you're unable to bring it back, and that it stays more than the number of us will stay outside the cold chain, and a few other issues expiring. Recently, there's been the story that we've had thousands of vaccines expiring in some regions. The truth of the matter is that the last 115,000 vaccines that were received, the second one was received on the 30th of March. The expiry date is on the 13th of April. So what it means that by the time we offloaded and distributed to the region, we started distribution on Good Friday. That is when vaccines were moving into the region to ensure that they are used before they expire. All regions were able to use it except for 480 doses that could not be used in Northern region, and 100 doses in OT. That is 48 bottles in Northern region and 10 bottles in that. If you look at the wastage, that's quite low, and so the numbers are not so, but looking at the time frame that we had, I think we should congratulate the API program, the public health, and all the people in the region for the sterling work they did to ensure that the vaccines were given to people. Some of them were going to churches, going to chief's palace to make sure that people who deserve the vaccines receive it. As of this morning, the total uploaded number of vaccines in our database is 783,560. But we have done more than about 850,000 already. As they continue to synchronize the data, the number will go up. But in brief, total number of health workers, of the total vaccine received, 27% has gone to health workers, People with underlying condition have received about the same 27%. If you look at the proportion and all these things, and over 23.1% have gone to people aged 60 and above, and of all these numbers, 63.8% of them are females. The next chart shows the daily increases in the number of people vaccinated. It's more of a cumulative curve that shows the number of people vaccinated. We have had two sessions of vaccination. I would say it's all in the phase 1, where as part of our segmentation, the first phase has had about 522, 69% of them were given. The second phase was the one that was targeting more health workers and then other vulnerable people in the regions. All regions were given additional vaccine to continue with the first segmentation. That was what was concluded, I would say, with the 13th, on the 12th, the midnight of the 13th, when the last vaccines were used for that. Now, we want to talk about the updates on the vaccines, AstraZeneca vaccine, which is what we have received so far. Our goal is to vaccinate about 20 million persons by the end of the year. On the 1st of March, we launched the vaccination, and we're giving, as you're aware, the president, the vice president, a few people from the council of state were also given vaccination. So we are doing the segmentation with over 50 teachers, over 50 health workers, people with underlying conditions, some essential services such as security persons, arms of government, and then mainly we serve for the 43 hotspots districts in the country, which is where majority of our cases have come from. The idea was to just like kill the fire there so that we can reduce the spread. But I think there's been a lot of information on AstraZeneca that I want to share with you. Unfortunately, this is too small, but I'm sure the slides will be made available to all of you. Based on some of the WHO recommendations on how to deploy AstraZeneca. The recommendation is that it has to be the dosage of between 8 to 12 weeks interval doses. That is, as far as vaccination is concerned, what we have most important is the minimum time within which a second shot, a booster dose, can be given. If you do it before that minimum date, you will not get any benefit. But sometimes the longer you wait, it still doesn't matter that you can still have your second shot and get your booster dose build up. WHO has done a lot of studies and has also shown that, number one is that if you give it before 4 weeks or before 2 weeks, there's virtually no benefit. But between 8 and 12 weeks is the best time to give. Even then, you have lost some percentage of the antibodies. It's still effective enough to protect you. And so they have evidence for those who have done it just under 12 weeks, and they show that those who have done under 6 weeks did not show any benefit. What is the efficacy of one dose? According to the studies that have been done globally and around, it protects you about 76% protection for over just about 90 days, which coincide with the 12 weeks we are talking about. Subsequently, they have not done the next stage. A lot of work is being done now, and I'm sure when it's concluded, we'll see how long does the first dose really protect you before you become vulnerable. Even in that, about 80 to 94% of the people who have received their first dose within that period are protected from severe disease and death. And so what it means that if more people have one dose, it's probably still save a lot more. But that's not to say second dose is not important. And a lot of evidence has shown that even when they have lost 34% of the initial antibodies that they built up, it's still very, very protective. And this is what informs our policy, next slide, on how we're going to do a vaccination. So we chose 8 weeks. Not at the earliest time one can receive the second dose. That's the earliest time, which means that if you took the second dose before 8 weeks, it will not be beneficial. But that also gives us the 4-week window that allow more people to get for the second dose deployment and also for the ease of deployment. Because if you have more people on a particular day, you may not, doesn't mean that the fact that you have 28 or so April on your card means that you must by all means have it on that. Is that range is there, but even there's no further data coming up.